We all have things we don't like about ourselves. But what if the thing you hated most was your own shadow? This is the strange and funny story of a wealthy chief who decided his shadow wasn't good enough for him and offered a huge reward to anyone who could get him a new one. In a prosperous village, there ruled a chief named Okoro. Chief Okoro was not a bad ruler, but he was an exceptionally vain one. He had the finest clothes made from vibrant colored threads. He had the heaviest beads carved from ivory. He even had a special stool carrier whose only job was to follow him around with a stool so he would never have to sit on the ground. But there was one thing that deeply troubled the chief. It was his shadow. Look at it, he would complain to his advisors, pointing a frustrated finger at the dark shape that followed him everywhere. It's so plain. It's just black. It stretches and it shrinks. It's not dignified. A man of my importance should have a more impressive shadow. His advisors would nod nervously, unsure of what to say. It is a very loyal shadow, Your Highness, one once stammered. This was not enough for Chief Okoro. He made a grand proclamation. I will give a bag of cowries and a goat to anyone in this village who can give me a new, more magnificent shadow. This, as you can imagine, caused a great stir. The villagers had never heard of such a thing, but the reward was tempting. The very next day, the presentations began. First came a weaver who brought a large black cloth cut in the shape of a man. He had his sons hold it up behind the chief. Behold, Your Highness, he said, a shadow that is always the same size and shape, perfectly dignified. The chief was pleased until he tried to walk and his shadow was left behind, held by the weaver's confused sons. Useless, the chief declared. Next came a clever artist. He spent all morning painting the chief's shadow on the ground with dyes made from berries and charcoal, adding a crown and a fearsome spear. Behold, a shadow that shows your true power, he announced. The chief was delighted and strutted back and forth, admiring the painted figure. But as soon as the sun moved across the sky, his real shadow crept away from the painting, leaving it behind. The chief was furious. Do you expect me to stand in one spot all day? Day after day, people tried and failed. They brought mirrors. They brought polished pots. They even brought a very large dark dog and tried to make it walk exactly behind the chief. Nothing worked. Finally, a young woman named Adanna, known for her quiet wisdom, came to the chief's court. She wasn't carrying anything. Where is my new shadow? The chief demanded, looking impatient. Great chief, Adanna said with a bow. I can give you the most beautiful, most magnificent shadow you have ever seen. It will shimmer with all the colors of the rainbow. It will be the envy of every other ruler, but it comes at a price. I will pay anything, the chief said, his eyes wide with excitement. The price, Adanna said calmly, is that you must stand in complete darkness. The chief stared at her. In darkness? But if I am in darkness, how will anyone see my magnificent new shadow? Exactly, Adanna replied softly. A long silence filled the court. The chief looked at Adanna. He looked at his own plain black shadow on the floor, and for the first time, he understood. In his quest for a better shadow, he was willing to give up the very light that allowed him to have one at all. He was so focused on the image he projected that he was forgetting to simply stand in the sun. Chief Okoro began to laugh. It started as a chuckle, and grew into a deep booming laugh that echoed through the village. He laughed at his own foolishness, at his vanity, and at the simple, perfect wisdom of the young woman's words. He gave Adana the bag of cowries and the goat anyway. Not for giving me a new shadow, he announced to everyone, but for giving me a new perspective. From that day on, Chifokoro did not worry about his shadow. He still wore his fine clothes and heavy beads, but he also learned to laugh at himself, and the villagers found they liked their chief and his perfectly ordinary shadow much more than before. The chief's quest reminds us that if we spend all our time worrying about our image, we forget to live our lives. The things we see as our flaws are often just a part of who we are. What is something you've learned to accept about yourself? Let us know in the comments below.